Hello and welcome to the iPro eCapture Solution Showcase today, featuring an introduction to the eCapture Flex processor. We'll wait just a few more moments to let a few of our friends dial in and connect to the audio and video portion of our discussion today. Today we'll be walking through the very basic idea and concept of the iPro eCapture filter manager called the Flex processor. We do have a few rules of engagement, however. We've asked all of our participants to communicate via the chat panel. All phones have been placed on mute, so if you have a question today, if you have a comment, please utilize the chat panel that should be located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And we'll try to address those questions towards the end of our discussion today. Alrighty, looking at my clock, it looks like now is a great time to begin our introduction to the Flex processor. So let's begin with a few quick items. iPro eCapture is our enhanced processing engine that utilizes worker machines, very powerful options, and a single console of management when processing your data. Now let's talk a little bit about what the Rules Manager is used for. Let's begin with a quick tour of the Rules Manager. Get a few things out on the table, and then we'll run through a few exercises together, a few considerations, and more during our introduction to the iPro Rules Manager today. Let's begin with the idea first of this Rules Manager. The Rules Manager itself is divided into a few sections. So simply jumping in and doing a quick tour, if you will, of this Rules Manager. It is a rule and action-based system. You set up a rule, you tell us what to do, and we will perform that action. There are several actions, however, that our solution can provide, depending on your goals, whether you're tipping and imaging the data, whether you're providing a native file review on this data. The actions themselves may change and be different based on the job and job goal. Tipping, for example, imaging, processing jobs to iPro mean imaging and tipping. So if I'm in the Rules Manager for a processing job or an imaging job, we have actions that are image-centric, or could be, let's say. If I choose to review and tour the actions available for tipping, image is one of them. Let's go image everything that's been discovered. Let's image only the Outlook files sent on a certain date that have a word in them. Or let's image only the first 5 pages of the Excel population to give a quick sense of what's here. We don't want to tip all of it. You have complete control over what and how materials are imaged in this application. But imaging is one action found under the processing job area of our tool. We can go directly to PDF. We have options to go direct to PDF image, which may give you a speed boost or speed increase, even if the end result needs to be TIFF files. Sometimes going direct to PDF, you may have a benefit and gain speed as a result of that. Other government agencies may require this type of workflow depending on your area of the world. Other very common and popular actions to provide on your data could be things like placeholdering the materials. Let's go placeholder those database files. Let's placeholder the Excel spreadsheets and give them native review. Placeholdering is another very common and popular action that you can take on the data. Placeholder these file types, placeholder these date ranges, the words between the date range. You can placeholder anything you wish. One of my favorite parts about this tool, however, is the ability to customize those placeholders to suit your preferences and needs. Many times you have strict placeholder requirements that you must follow. If you have certain metadata needs that must be in a certain order on a slip sheet or placeholder sheet or other values, you have that option here to customize any placeholder that you would like us to build for you. This link, by the way, I'll go ahead and click it now, would allow me to set up and customize, well, what goes on that placeholder. You want to include the custodian name on the placeholder, perhaps the batch ID of where these documents came from, and much, much more. The ability to placeholder, however, can include iPro eCapture system attributes, system flags, metadata, external values, and more when you need it. You can also, if I highlight custodian, for example, that I've elected to put on my placeholder, down in this section you have the ability to customize the fonts, the styles. If the firm's preference is that all fonts are in Arial size 12, you can meet that requirement very easily. But you can customize the font, the style, for each and every property here. Other common controls include the spacing of these values, how much spacing goes between them, where are they being aligned or placed on that placeholder. Do you want them in the top upper left-hand corner or center everything? Labels, date normalizing, you have quite a bit of power and control over what goes on and how things go on that placeholder. Now, one takeaway that I do encourage, and I am a huge fan of, is the ability to template this information. I'll be talking about templates today, and the Rules Manager is a very template-driven system and solution. For a quick, fast, get-up-and-go, ease of use, and repeatability, templates are a very strong part of eCapture. Now, I have a placeholder template handy, or several, perhaps. I could load in the lower left-hand corner any one of those saved templates that I may have ready to go for me. Here's one that I'm producing native. I'll hit OK. On that template, I've included certain attributes in a certain order using a certain font and style that the firm wants me to use. Even my own custom labeling and verbiage, file produced natively. Right down to my alignment preferences, my spacing preferences, it's done and waiting. Templates are a great way to reuse and use placeholders in our system. You can even use these placeholders in our QC station when you need to. But placeholdering is one action that you can take on your data. Let's placeholder those Excel spreadsheets. Let's placeholder this or that. And how are you going to placeholder those materials? But another common action could be this, to placeholder with text a certain type of document or date range or search term. Placeholder with text would allow you to placeholder those Excel spreadsheets, but rip all of the text out. So it's fully indexed and searchable within your review tool. You're just not wasting TIFF time TIFFing that Excel spreadsheet. Placeholder with text would placeholder the object, but rip the text out of that object for review and searchability. Another common action, though, is remove. So let's remove those database files. Let's remove the Excel spreadsheets. The action to remove something simply means to not include it in this job right now. The job I'm about to do, please don't include those database files. Remove them from this job. iPro eCapture has a philosophy to discover once, repurpose many. So if today I'm removing those database files, but tomorrow I have to provide those database files, we never affect or impact the original data. The original discovery data is still there. So you could tomorrow produce those database files as instructed. But action to remove is here, to simply not include those database files in this job today. Actions can be defined here. A few other considerations which we'll be jumping into in just a few moments include things like scope, which is a very important consideration. There are some advanced settings that you could use to categorize certain criteria and include this information into a load file. I'll touch on that in just a few. But down in this section is where you would set up, well, what are you doing right now? What are we going to image? Are we going to deduplicate your data? Do we need to isolate a certain file size or file type here or extension? Now, a little bit about these two areas since it's right here in front of me. The file type is a file type. It is based on the header value and header information of the object. Forget the extension targets the header value of that object. Versus this side, which is raw extension targeting. Plug in a proprietary extension, plug in a certain extension value that needs to be affected by a rule or targeted. There is a difference between raw extension targeting versus file signature targeting based on your goals. But the tabs here allow you to define and set up, well, the criteria of that rule. If certain file types, date ranges need to be isolated. Search terms, let's go plug in search terms. We even provide various advanced criteria here, like the dNIST list. If your system has the NIST list enabled, let's remove those Office 95 system files and those DLLs from Office 97 if they're there. The NIST list is fully supported in our application, and several additional advanced criteria settings that you can find here. So the Rules Manager is here to help provide the deliverable or the output that you require out of a job. So let's talk a little bit more about this Rules Manager now. And let's walk through a few scenarios. And I'm going to go ahead and back up a notch or two. Because before we touch processing jobs, before we go down a data extract path, I shared a little bit about the Rules Manager for tipping and placeholdering and imaging documents. If you're doing native file review on the documents, the Rules Manager is here as well. You can naturally use the Rules Manager. to target items, to remove items. The only difference that you can see or find involves the action section. A moment ago, we looked at processing jobs, tipping options, which included those images, the limiting of pages, and placeholdering, because the data extract job is used for native file review preparation. We don't grade images. There are no TIFFs or PDFs created in that job type, so the actions are native file review centric. I bring this action item down. Notice my choices are a bit different than what I shared with you just a moment ago. Let's data extract everything between this date range. Data extract all the Outlook files set with the date and a word in it, or put a placeholder, or remove. But these actions are native file review centric actions versus tipping or imaging type actions, which we saw at the processing job level. Everything else about this rules manager is the same. The only difference is the action that we can take based on your workflow and the jobs that you're providing. So we have in iPro, eCapture, different jobs that do different things. Native file review jobs, tipping jobs, both of which provide that rules manager for you. But there's even a job ahead of this, discovery, that I'm going to mention, because the discovery process is traditionally the loading, the getting it in aspect of things. And there are a few settings and considerations that I'm going to bring up right now. Under discovery, when you're discovering your data, we have amazing options and choices to pick and work with. However, indexing at the top is a consideration. Indexing here sets up the searchability, keyword searchability, that we can use later. If my goal is to keyword search these documents, produce only the Outlook emails that have a word in them sent on a date, I have to make this data searchable so we can keyword search the data. But this is a yes or no. Yes, make the data keyword searchable. No, don't make it keyword searchable. If it's yes, you have several search index considerations and settings that can help provide the search index that you may need to utilize, looking for numbers, credit card values, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, word breaking, and much, much more. We even have various options for OCR now, to OCR a TIFF or PDF to provide a searchability layer for those image files. Those TIFFs and JPEGs are now responsive to your search terms that you'll be using later. But considerations for the rules manager technically start now at discovery. Are we making this data searchable for keywords, yes or no? If the answer is yes, we can build that index. Those settings are used to build that index so that the rules manager can use it later. Now let's get right in and start to run through a few scenarios together during this introduction to the rules manager. Let's go through processing jobs a few times. It's a very visual, very easy to see and grasp job type. And iPro has many options, many settings that can be used to tip and image data exactly how and the way you need to tip that data. But when you go to filtering is where that rules manager comes into play. Now I'm actually going to delete the rule that I have there because I want to talk about this for a moment. On this screen where it says no rules to display, I have a job, I don't have any rules to display. What this means is whatever data was in that discovery job, whatever went in this discovery job, we'll try to give it to you on the output. Whatever goes in, goes out. We'll try our best to give you all of those files, tips all of those files in your system. We're not deduping. We're not demisting. No rules means whatever was in is going to go out to the best of our ability. Well, let's talk a bit more about that. This Rules Manager button below offers a wizard approach to walk me through things or to manage things myself. Here's that Rules Manager once again, which I described a little bit about what's on our screen. Well, let's run through a few things right now, and I'm going to pull in some rules that I have established. We have a rule set manager that would allow you to work with those templates. I mentioned templates at the beginning. This is extremely repeatable, template-driven. You can have master rules, system rules, default rules, and more. I'm going to go ahead and import rules from another project. You have various options to import search term lists and more. I'm going to go borrow some rules that I have from another project. I want to talk about them a little bit. Here's a job that I'll use. Well, if you remember the various actions that we can take on your data, I've imported some rules that I've used already, and I want to talk a little bit about them. I'm going to image various things. I'm going to search for various words and flag documents that have those words. I'm going to placeholder a few objects, and I already told it what to put on that placeholder using my template, using my settings and preferences. And I'm going to remove a few objects as well. Well, we have a few other buttons here that I want to mention before I get into the details here. One is a preview button, preview our results. What this is going to do for me is show me in advance what we're about to do. How is this going to turn out? When I preview my results, it will summarize for me what we're about to do before we do it. Now I have on my screen my results. All I've done is discover the data, created a few rules on that data, and I see them here. If I want to, I can sort these by their header. Let's sort by their effective rule. When I group things together, I'll be able to see very clearly, well, what's going to happen in my data before it happens, where any keyword hits words were, where any removal actions may be, placeholder actions fall here, and everything else is going to be imaged in your data. This is a great tool to, one, quickly see if there are any surprises. Oops, we forgot about all these DLLs. What about MP3s that I'm seeing in the population? I don't want to image those. Let's save this report, maybe re-reference it. This is a great report that we'll be using today to walk through the cause and effect of the rules that we're about to work with. But the Preview Results button is a great tool to help you out. Now, there are a few limits to this. However, it is a good aid to walk you through and check a few things. Let's talk a little bit more about this Rules Manager. I'm going to use my wizard Rules Manager to delete all the rules in my project, so we start from scratch. And if you remember, I started by saying no rules to display means what goes in goes out. Well, that's not what I want. I'm going to do a few exercises with you right now, and we're going to create a few rules. There's a button to create a new rule. When I push it, I'm going to create a rule and give it a title. Titles are very important. They're values that can be placed on a slip sheet, a placeholder. They're here to help your colleagues see what you're trying to accomplish. Well, I'm going to do a few things here, and then we're going to back up and talk about them. And I'm going to give this rule title, All Files. And there's a checkbox here that I'll jump down to that says All Files. I'm going to check it. What this says is I want to image all files, everything in that discovery job. Let's go try to image it. However, there's another rule I'm going to add to this, because that's not entirely, well, all the goals I had. I needed to image everything that we found, but But I need to do something with Excel spreadsheets. Excel spreadsheets need to be placeholder. That's all I need to do. Image everything but placeholder Excel spreadsheet. If that's my goal, I'm going to create a title on my new rule called Excel spreadsheets or Excel documents. My action here is to image them. No, I'm not imaging those Excel spreadsheets. My goal is to placeholder those Excel spreadsheets. I'm going to go select what's on those placeholders for the Excel spreadsheets, and I could go through and pick and choose or use the template that has been approved for me to use with all the settings and preferences that the firm wants. So let's go placeholder Excel spreadsheets. This is how we're going to placeholder them, but down below I need to select that Excel spreadsheet. Here's my Excel population. Maybe they also need all the generic and other formatted spreadsheets as well to be placeholdered. Well, simply saving right now. Let's just see what happens. Save. And according to the two rules I have here, I'm saying image all files but placeholder spreadsheets and Excel files. Well, let's go preview a few results and see what this tells me. If we maximize our screen here and maximize the real estate, and let's go sort this column, a header once again. Oh, good. I see the word placeholder under action. I see various file types that look like there are some spreadsheets, there are some Excels in there. I see a Lotus 123. But if I scroll down a little bit more, there are some other file types also showing up. I see doc files that will be placeholdered. I see PowerPoint files that will be placeholdered. And I didn't say anything about those file types. So why are they here? Well, we'll be talking about that in just a moment, but things are starting to work for me, it looks like anyway. I'm placeholdering those spreadsheet files, imaging several others. So things are starting to fall into place. However, there are these doc files. There are some extra things here that I haven't quite considered yet. Let's go ahead and keep going. So image all files, go placeholder those Excel spreadsheets. Well, the first order of business I'd like to mention is the order that these two rules are in. I'm starting with everything and wanted to placeholder Excel. Well, many times my friends say, why wouldn't you do it the other way? Why wouldn't you just switch the order of those two around, where we placeholder those Excel spreadsheets first and then image everything that's left over? Well, the way the system works is by, well, executing lines of code top to bottom. Let's say it that way. It starts at the top and works its way down. So if we say placeholder Excel spreadsheets, it will, and then it sees the image all button, and it'll put them all right back again. Let's take a look at that. All I did was reorder these, put the placeholder first, image what's left over, show me. When I preview those results once again, and I attempt to sort by their effective rule or their action, hey, nothing's happening. Nothing is being placeholdered this time. Why is that? Well, the reason is that order. We execute lines of code top to bottom. It will literally see placeholder Excels. Ooh, you want to image everything again? Let's put them all right back again. Now, if I simply move that order back to where it was, hey, image everything, start with all of it, but then go placeholder those Excel spreadsheets. Let's just preview once again, make sure my goals are met. Well, let's resize my window. Let's sort these guys by their header row. Oh, hey, all right, I see the word placeholder again. I see what looks to be Excel spreadsheets. I see various things, but all kinds of other items are in here now. I saw the word docx. I saw all types of things here now. but I see the word placeholder. It is going to attempt a placeholder Excel spreadsheet. Several other things too, but the placeholder action is happening. So the first order of business that I like to mention is the order. The order of things is important. Image everything, do something with Excel spreadsheets. This is a lot like a funnel, where you started with the entire discovery job, but I just want things to trickle out of this funnel, out of the bottom of my funnel, the way and the how I want. The rules accumulate after one another. Well, let's do one more example for the order. I have another marching order to do. I needed to image everything, placeholder those Excel spreadsheets, but they actually want me to remove the DB files, those database files. There's my title. I'm going to encourage the use of a title. It's going to help you. It's going to help your colleagues, but this is also something you can use on placeholders and other areas too. My action, no, I'm not going to image those database files. They want me to remove them. Remove. Down here we have a database file type. I'm going to select it. So remove those database files, and I'll hit save. Well, let's just take another step back. Many times my friends ask, why wouldn't you remove them first and then image what's left over? Well, the order, again, is very important. So if I were to preview these results right now as it stands, let's maximize my real estate. Let's sort this by the top header row. I see that word placeholder once again. I see several Excel spreadsheets there, but all sorts of other things too, EMLs, PowerPoints. We'll be getting to that in a moment. Oh, but here's that word remove. I see the word remove, and there are a few database files here that will be removed. Well, just to hit that home, I'm going to swap this around a bit. Again, why wouldn't you take the database files out and image everything that's left over and do something with Excel spreadsheets? Literally, lines of code are executed top to bottom. We will remove the database files, then we see this line, and we put them all right back again. Let's preview and confirm. There's my preview pane. Let's move my real estate around, sort these guys by their header. I'm still placeholdering all sorts of things. That's working. Still have those doc files in there and PowerPoint, but jumps right to imaging. What happened to all those removes? What's going on with the database files? Remember that order. The order is the first order of business to discuss, and that is very important. We would like to image what you have to image, placeholder what you have to placeholder, and remove. Remove action should be at the bottom. It should be one of your last rule types. To remove should be at the bottom of the chain. Let's test it. Image everything. Placeholder Excel spreadsheet. Remove database files. Top to bottom execution. Let's preview. Make sure I'm right. Open. Let's sort these by their effective rule title. Move my real estate around. I have all sorts of placeholders once again. I keep going a little bit more. Oh, there's that word remove. So we are going to remove a few database files in the population. The order, again, is very important when you're using the Rules Manager. That's the first consideration. The second consideration involves scope. If you remember, when I was previewing those results each time, there were placeholders happening for my Excels and spreadsheets, but I also had emails in there and PowerPoint and Word docs. There were some other items in there that I didn't say anything about. Well, that's because of this. Scope is the next piece to the puzzle. Scope is when and how are we going to execute this rule for you. Now I'm going to bring this drop-down menu down and just talk a little bit about them. Talk about them in a nutshell, then let's work with this scope area a bit. But each rule could have a separate scope applied, depending on what your goals are. Now the very first option says to apply this rule to all items of a compound document if the parents match. Well, a compound document means family. It means an email, an attachment. It means an OLE embedded object. It means a family of documents. Compound means family. So when I'm using this scope to apply this rule, go placeholder, those Excel spreadsheets, placeholder all family items if the parents match. Well, if I emailed you my Excel spreadsheet, the email is the parent, the child is the Excel spreadsheet. Well, those parents don't match. The parents are not Excel spreadsheets. They're emails. Those Excel spreadsheets that are attached to this email, they are not going to be placeholder. They are going to slip through the cracks because of this scope right here. Go placeholder the entire family if the parents match the criteria I'm trying to utilize here. That's not what I want in my goal. Going down to the second choice, go apply this rule to all items of a family if at least one of them matches. Well, there's that email example I have as an attachment, that Excel spreadsheet attachment. But do I really want to apply a placeholder to the entire family if one of those items match? What about the PowerPoints, the Word docs, the email itself? I don't want to touch those. I want to image those. I'm targeting only Excel spreadsheets, the placeholder. I don't want to touch the other compound documents or family member documents. But that's what this would. This would apply the placeholder to all family members if one of those family members happens to be Excel spreadsheet. It's not what I want in my example right now. Let's bring down the next choice. Apply this rule to the family of documents if all of them match. All of them must be Excel to be placeholders. They all must match that criteria. Well, there's that email of mine and all sorts of attachments. One of them happens to be an Excel spreadsheet. Well, based on this scope, not all family members match my Excel criteria. They're going to slip through the cracks. That Excel spreadsheet is not going to be placeholdered like I want it to. Not the one I want. The last one, however, says to treat items of a family, of a compound document, separate them. I really don't care about parent-child. I don't care about the relationship of the data. I don't care. I care about Excel spreadsheets being placeholders. No matter where they live in a family relationship, go placeholder Excel spreadsheets. Don't touch the email. Don't touch the Word doc. Don't touch those PowerPoints. Just target Excel spreadsheets. This is the scope I want to achieve the goal I'm trying to achieve, which is imaging everything but placeholdering Excel spreadsheets and removing database files. That's all I wanted to do. Now that I've changed this scope to treat things separately, forget the families, just look at Excels for placeholdering. Oh, and other spreadsheets that I may have selected down here. Well, let's just preview my results now. Let's see that little adjustment to scope. Let's see if that helps achieve my goal. There's my preview report. Let's move my real estate around a little bit. I'm going to sort by that effective rule header again, and oh good, I see all sorts of placeholder events now. I did before, but if I keep going, you know what, I really only see spreadsheets. I don't see those Word docs anymore. I don't see PowerPoint. I don't see all those EMLs that were in there a minute ago. We are now targeting Excels and spreadsheets. I had spreadsheets checked in there too, so that's why we have these other guys. These are all spreadsheet types. that are being targeted for my rule. No emails, no Word docs, no PowerPoint. This scope is the next piece of the puzzle. The order is important. The scope is the second piece of that. Well, now that I've cleaned up my Excel one, let's go look at my database one. Let's just make sure my scope was appropriate for the removal of database files. Well, apply this rule to the family of documents if the parents match. Well, what if I emailed you my access file, my database file? Well, again, that's probably not the one I want in my scenario. I want to treat them separately. I don't care where database files live in the relationship of data, I have to placeholder them or remove them or something. Well, now that I made that little scope adjustment, let's preview and just see if I have a few extra database files that we can remove out of the population. Again, click on the header row to group them all into lumps, so to speak, for a quick, fast QC, and there we are. I have a few removals of database files still happening, but we're treating them separately. We're targeting them separately. So scope, order, two pieces of this system that must be considered at all times. Now, traditionally, everybody has to deduplicate as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add one other rule to this. Rule, new one. I'm going to call it my dupe rule. Now, because this is a TIFF job we're working with, my processing job, I'm going to jump right down to this duplicates area for processing and select. I have options. Now, immediately, as soon as I choose duplicates, our scope has adjusted. The scope immediately has changed on me. If I look closely at the scope settings, I only get two now. Deduplication at a family level or individual deduplication. Be very aware of that. I would always prefer the family level deduping, but you have control here for additional options. But then how are we deduplicating? Just my job, across all jobs in this custodian, or at the project level, across custodians, I need to deduplicate across it all. Maybe I'm including that in my load file. Who had a duplicate copy? Where was that duplicate copy? Global and project level deduplication is here. Now, our recommendation would always be that deduplication is the last rule in your set. Deduplication should be the very last rule set up in your job. Image everything, placeholder Excel spreadsheets, remove those database files, and deduplicate everything else that's in there. So the order is important. The scope is important. Let's go through a few other scenarios too. And I could certainly delete a rule one at a time by pushing this delete button. I, however, am going to use this rule set manager once again to very quickly use this radio button to delete all rules in this job, just to wipe my slate clean, let's say. And here we are. So in addition to the order of the rules and the scope that you're using for the rules, there's an additional introductory piece of information that we'll start with next, and that is, well, the ands and the or type logic that the system uses. So let's go create a new rule. And my new rule is going to be, well, maybe one of my goals are to target Outlook files. Giving it a name. I want to image what? I'm going to jump down and say I need to image all of the Outlook files. My scope, Well, do I want to, well, I'm going to target only the Outlook files, so I don't care where they live in the family relationship. Maybe somebody zipped up an Outlook file or embedded one, or I need to get all of the Outlook files, no matter where they live. However, there's a little more to this. I need to target those Outlook files that were sent between a certain date. Let's go filter by date. Let's go set up a date criteria that you want to search through. I think I have some emails in here from this date range. And I'm going to add one other term to it. Remember, at the beginning I mentioned discovery and the ability to include an index in that discovery. Well, if I had not checked that box to make that data keyword searchable, my search criteria area would be grayed out. I would not be able to plug terms in. I would not be able to borrow terms from another job if I had one. But because I've made this job searchable, I can do that. I can borrow terms. I can use full DT search syntax here when necessary. Now, on a side note, since we're here talking about searching for a moment, this is DT search. It is fully compatible for DT search syntax, ands, ors, nods, proximity, and more. Also, I've gone ahead and plugged in or borrowed some terms. I can show hits. This is a preview button here that's used to QC your terms. Did I set up my syntax properly? Oops, I forgot something, or did not get the results I was expecting. This show hits is there to help you out. I'm going to do another example too where I'm looking for anything that has a file name that contains banner, and I'm going to make one little adjustment for any word and just show the hit. Whoa, 1,279 and all of these, well, this doesn't quite look right. Oh, I know what it was. This is a Boolean type search. That's really the radio button I should have changed to. So one subtle adjustment here to show your hits. Okay, that's a lot better. I was looking for anything that had the word banner, JPEG, a file type. Here are all those objects. Just be aware this is DC search compliant, so using different search logic, different operators can be used here. Also, the ability to borrow and work with previously used syntax or terms can be done. Well, I want to find something that has the word WebEx. My goal are Outlook files sent between a certain date that have the word WebEx in them. Well, number one, let's test the term. Let's make sure I have something with the word WebEx in it. Show my hit. I've indexed that data, and I do. I've got 50 objects here that contain that word WebEx. Good. So I am now backing up, imaging Outlook files that were sent between a certain date that have the word WebEx in them. Now, if we take a look at the top here, there's my rule, and I want to point out this one piece of information. When you're creating a rule that uses multiple criteria set on one line, hopefully you can see this okay, and is implied, and it must be an Outlook file, and be between a date, and include a word in it. When you're using multiple criteria in one line, that's an and applied statement. Well, show me. I think I do anyway. Let's go preview my results and see if I have something in the population. Oh, good. And I do. I've got 36 documents that are Outlook files that have a word in it that were sent between the date. Well, let's go add one more to that. So in addition to that rule criteria, I had to do something maybe with spreadsheets again. And they want us to image those spreadsheets. I don't care where they live. I want to target Excel spreadsheets that are also between a certain date range. And let's go take a quick look and see what this does now. So go find Excel spreadsheets that are also between a date range, and I might as well hit the Save button and preview those results once again. Okay, I have a little bit more. Good. A little more showing up. Let's group them by their type. Oh, there are a few Excel spreadsheets in there that met that criteria. This is what will pass through in this job. This is what's going to be imaged. These email files, those Excel files, nothing else. Out of the 20 gigs we've ingested, this is what's going to come out. This is what will be tipped. Now I want to back up because when multiple rules are in one line, notice the and statement, and. I added another line altogether. I'm looking for something else. This is an or. I want Outlook files and between a date and have a word in them, or give me Excel spreadsheets between a date, or do something else with something else. This is an or implied value versus all in one line is an and implied value. So this rules manager, and I'm just giving you an introductory session here on the very basic ideas and concepts of this tool. Order of your rules is important. Scope is important. But also considering the rules and the lines themselves. Ands and ors are here. Now there are other options and controls like pre-flagging documents and include them in a load file. I mentioned categorization. This is a great tool to use, and if I want to categorize things, you can very easily categorize requirements as potentially hot docs or anything at all you type here. Categories can be included in load files. But it works very well in the iPro Enterprise, Eclipse especially, to build smart folders on those hot documents, to tally, to work with this category attribute if you want. It's a great way to categorize all the media files, anything that's been placeholdered, privileged terms, unknown objects. A category field works very well in the iPro solutions and others too, in addition to the flagging themselves. All flags, categories could be loaded into a load file if you want. Importing of search terms, consistency, firm-wide standards. This rule set manager can be used to work with templates, import rules, and much, much more. In addition to the basic file type, date range, or term searches, the advanced criteria is used for that nesting, any custom hash values that you may need to target. Parent, child, and even other advanced settings can be taken advantage of here. Now today's goal was primarily an introductory session. Let's get the basics under our belt and start to talk about them. Before I open things up for questions, I would like to share, and I'm a very visual guy, so I'm going to open up my QC station for just a quick moment. I talked a little bit about placeholdering today, and I wanted to visualize or show you a placeholder. I have a placeholder in front of me. These are the ones I wanted and the ones I've created. I had strict criteria. I wanted everything and underline using a certain font, the custodian's name, this, that, double line spacing. I wanted certain values in a certain order, hash, SHA values, extensions, and I wanted it centered on the page. This is an example of, well, a placeholder that I wanted and I had the system create. You can customize these, template them, use them to your advantage. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, but I'm going to also open things up for questions. So if anyone has a question today regarding the introduction to the Rules Manager, please let me know, and feel free to send those chats to me now. I have a question coming in asking about the template for rules. If I'm understanding the question properly, the quick answer is yes, you can email that template file to a vendor. Those template files, those rule files, they are very portable in that regard. You could email them to a vendor. You could ask your vendor to email what they've been doing for you back. Many times our friends like to save those templates out on their network, something they can use and reuse and grab and go. Those are template files that are very emailable, let's say, or portable in that regard. I have a question coming in asking about that preview report I was using and to define what those limits are. You're right, I mentioned that there are a few limits to that preview report. I was using it extensively in the examples right now to show the cause and effect of the order, the cause and effect of the scope within our system, but there are limits to that preview report. Two limits jump to mind. One is deduplication. Deduplication is not shown on that report. Deduplication in iPro happens at the time of the job on the fly, so that report does not actually generate the deduplication values and what is or is not duped in or out. The other limit is the record number. And right now it's hard-coded to 5,000. The first 5,000 records would be displayed on that report. We have to put a cap on there somewhere, or trying to preview 1 million records could have an impact on the system, let's say, but that's a great preview report to show and massage and work towards success. Alrighty. That concludes today's session on the introduction to the Rules Manager of eCapture. I thank you very much. Please don't hesitate to attend any one of these future presentations. And I thank you all very much. Have a great day.